Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Zizi, and if you are a returning subscriber and get one girl, I acknowledge you. So in today's video, I thought I would chat about something a little bit taboo and personal, but very necessary, and that is money and the mistakes that I have personally made with it. I've been working full-time now for about 3 years, but I've also been working part-time for about 10 years. And although I wouldn't necessarily say that I have kind of figured money out or am a financial expert, there are certain lessons which life has taught me and certain things which, given the chance, I would do differently. And so I thought I'd share some of those lessons and mistakes that I have made so that you can make better decisions and better choices for yourself. Here are 5 of the biggest financial mistakes that I have made. Number 1 was not saving money when I had plenty of it to spare. The majority of my undergraduate degree was funded by an organization called the Alan Gray Orbis Foundation, of which some of you guys who might be aware of the foundation, it is kind of generous when it comes to student allowances. But aside from my generous student allowance, which I got from my scholarship, I also worked various jobs throughout my degree. I tutored for UCT's stats department, I tutored privately, university stats as well, and I worked various other campus jobs throughout my degree. On any given month, I had about a 7,000 or 8,000 rand income, of which 8,000 rand might not sound like a lot to some of you guys, but to me 8,000 rand is a lot of money. And to a student back then, it was even more money. And the only responsibility I really had with that money was to feed myself and to ensure that I had toiletries and clothes to wear. But outside of that, I didn't have to pay rent, black tax hadn't yet caught up with me, and I didn't really have anything else to do with my money. And so I just spent it. I spent it on fancy clothes, on expensive perfumes that I couldn't afford. I spent it on groove and going out for dinners literally multiple times a week as a student. And I deeply regret that. I think a lot of the times we think that, you know, we'll save when we're older, we'll save when we have a bigger income, which is possible. However, the older we get, the more our responsibilities are. Now I have real grown woman expenses. I have rent, I have insurance, I have siblings to look after, and I don't have the luxury of a lot of disposable income that I did as a student. The second financial mistake which I made was getting a store card or account, as what we call it in South Africa, maxing it out and then abandoning it straight after. When I was in my first year of university as an 18-year-old, I really loved home decor. And so I used to visit shops like At Home and Mr. Price Home, and on a specific evening I was at the Mr. Price Home in Canal Walk in Cape Town, and one of the sales representatives came up to me and offered me a store card. So I agreed and I applied for one, and I think the limit that I was given on that account was, I think, about 1,800 rand or 1,500 rand. I literally maxed it out that exact same evening. I bought myself brand new bedding, decor for my raised room, and I called it a night. And I was that girl. But I spent that money literally straight after spending it, decorated my entire bedroom, and then took the card, cut it up, tossed it out, and I never made a single payment. And then I basically ignored all the communication that Mr. Price sent me, wanting me to basically pay them back for my store account. And long story short, that account followed me. Although it didn't negatively affect my credit record, I'm not sure how that happened, but it followed me for many years, and I ended up then having to pay more than 4,000 rand on 1,500 rand worth of bedding. You know, the word says that only the wicked don't pay their debt, only the wicked borrow and refuse to repay. You know, so just from like a moral, godly standpoint, it's unethical. But beyond the ethics of it, behaviors like that and habits like that can wreak serious havoc on your credit record. Somehow I was able to escape that part until I paid. But a lot of the time people aren't so lucky. And I also just ended up paying so much money on interest charges, which I could have avoided by either just faithfully paying that account, or even better, not opening it up at all. And then the third financial mistake which I have made is not preparing for big moves. Back in 2017, I lived in a one-room granny flat in the southern suburbs of Cape Town. And then due to some family difficulties, I had to take in my two little sisters and live with them. And so obviously my one-room flat was not sufficient for the three of us. And my landlady was also just not happy about that arrangement. And so I had to move. It took me about 5 months to eventually find an apartment that was big enough for the three of us and that was within a fair enough price bracket for me. In those 5 months, I could have saved up a large portion of the money which I would need in order to make that move happen. Things like deposits and furniture, especially because I was moving from a fully furnished place to an unfurnished place. I needed furniture. And because I also didn't have an emergency fund at the time, I ended up having to get into debt. I took a credit card in order to pay for the deposit of my apartment. I bought my bed and my fridge and some of the essential furniture and kitchen pieces on credit. And it took me 2 years to pay those things off. I knew that the move had to happen. I could have used that time to save money, but I didn't. Speaking of emergency funds, the fourth financial mistake which I have made is not having an emergency fund. For those of you guys who don't know, an emergency fund is typically about 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses that you save into a low-risk savings account that you can easily access. And this money is literally set aside for emergencies. This can be having to pay access in your vehicle should you get into a car accident, the death of a family member and you needing to fly across the country or across the continent to go and attend the funeral or send money home for the funeral. This could include other unexpected medical bills which your medical aid doesn't pay. In some cases, it can even mean the money that you would use should you get laid off from your job. I know that 3 months worth of living expenses is a lot of money and takes a long time to save. But a good place to start is just 1 month. Save 1 month of your living expenses in a low risk savings account. This will provide you with a little bit of cushion so that if any of these emergencies do come up, you don't have to scramble and get into debt to cover them. 1 month is a fair place to start, especially if you have other more pressing financial priorities like paying off high interest debt or looking after aging or ill parents. Not having an emergency fund is, I would say, by far the biggest reason why I ended up getting into debt. Emergencies would crop up and important expenses would come up from time to time, and because I didn't have an emergency fund to cover them, I would always end up getting into debt. Over the past 4 years, I could have saved myself thousands, if not tens of thousands of rands, if I had just had an emergency fund. Number 5 is not negotiating my salary. It is common knowledge that women are much less likely to negotiate their salaries, especially Black women. And we have a tendency to just kind of accept whatever number is initially proposed by an employer. And this can be because of a number of different reasons. In my situation personally, one of the reasons why I have never really negotiated a salary was because, one, I always just felt that an employer was doing me a favor by making me a job offer, that I needed them more than they needed me. Another reason was that I just feared that if I actually asked for something higher, that they would kind of view me as greedy or ungrateful and then retract the offer. And then at times it has just been because of a lack of knowledge, not knowing what is an actual competitive salary in my line of work and at my level. Sometimes it has been purely because I actually just didn't know how to actually negotiate. Although I can't quantify how much this has cost me over the past couple of years, but I know that there were times when I have had colleagues and peers who have been doing the same work that I do, with the same level of experience that I have, who are earning more. And yes, that can be because of racial and gender biases. It can also be because maybe those people are just better at the job than I am. But it can also be just because I didn't negotiate and they did. So those are the top 5 financial mistakes that I have made so far, and I really hope that you found this somewhat useful. I'm going to be making a lot more of these types of videos because this is a topic that I do care about. In fact, when I started my YouTube channel, this was my kind of intention to make these types of videos. So if this is something that you find valuable, I'd really like it if you were to actually let me know in the comment section below and give this video a like. And also guys, don't let this just be me. Please go in the comment section below and let us know, girl, share, what financial mistakes you've made and have since learned from, especially in your late teens and your early 20s. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Bye.
And as time goes by,